Ma'am, step away from the penthouse elevator. That level isn't for guests like you. The words didn't echo. They cut, clean and deliberate, slicing through the polished quiet of the marble lobby at 10:42 a.m. Danielle Brooks didn't move. Somewhere behind her, a guest slowed their steps. Another turned their head. The room was starting to notice. The manager straightened his posture, sensing the shift, doubling down. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from this area. Danielle exhaled softly, not frustrated, not rushed, just measured. Then she looked down at her watch. 10:44 a.m. When she lifted her eyes again, something had changed. Not louder, not aggressive, just sharper. You should check again, she said. The manager smiled, thin and final. There's nothing to check. A pause. Then Danielle nodded once, slow, deliberate. All right, she said, reaching into her pocket and pulling out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen for half a second before tapping. When she brought it to her ear, her voice didn't rise. It dropped. Start the clock, she said. Then she looked directly at him. You have 16 minutes. The manager did not laugh this time, but the corner of his mouth twitched like he wanted to. 16 minutes. He glanced at the security guard, then back at Danielle, trying to read her, trying to find the bluff. You are not in a position to give ultimatums here, he said, voice lower now, controlled, but something underneath it had shifted. Danielle did not respond. She lowered her phone slowly, her eyes never leaving his, then stepped slightly to the side, just enough to clear the path to the elevator, but not enough to comply. It was not defiance. It was placement. Intentional. Precise. The kind that made people second-guess themselves. The young associate behind the desk swallowed and looked back at her screen, fingers hovering. She typed something quickly, then paused. Her brows pulled together. She typed again, slower this time. Sir, she said, quieter now, there is a record. It is just, she hesitated. The manager turned sharply. Just what? She turned the screen slightly toward him, not enough for Danielle to see, but enough for him to catch the detail. His expression flickered. For a fraction of a second, the certainty cracked. Then it was gone. He straightened, voice snapping back into authority. System glitch, he said quickly. Happens all the time. Duplicate entries, outdated tags. The associate did not look convinced. But it says executive clearance, she added, softer now, almost to herself. The manager stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. Just enough to keep it from spreading. Delete it, he said. We are done here, he said, louder this time, projecting authority back into the room. If you do not leave, we will proceed with removal from the premises. The words were formal, practiced, but they did not land the same way anymore. Not after what had just happened. Danielle did not look at him immediately. Instead, she turned her head slightly toward the front desk associate. What is your name? She asked. The question caught her off guard. Emily, she replied, almost instinctively. Danielle nodded once. Emily, you saw the record. It was not a question. Emily hesitated, her eyes flicking to the manager, then back to Danielle. The silence stretched. Then, barely above a whisper, yes. The manager stepped in instantly. That is irrelevant, he snapped. The system has been verified. Danielle shifted her gaze back to him, calm as ever. Verified by who? She asked. He opened his mouth, then paused, just for a second. Long enough. Around them, a man near the concierge desk folded his arms, clearly listening now. A woman by the entrance adjusted her phone, angling it slightly higher, subtle but intentional. The room was no longer neutral. It was leaning. The manager felt it. You could see it in the way his shoulders tightened, in the way his voice sharpened just a little more. This is a private establishment, he said. We reserve the right to deny access. Danielle nodded slowly, as if agreeing with him. You absolutely do, she said. Just not based on assumptions. Another pause. Then she checked her watch again. 10:52 a.m., 8 minutes gone. 8 left. The symmetry was not lost on her. Half your time is gone, she added quietly. The manager let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. You keep mentioning time like it means something, he said. It does, Danielle replied. You just do not know why yet. Behind the scenes, beyond the polished floors and controlled smiles, a different kind of movement had begun. Emails flagged. Access logs triggered. Names pulled from internal directories. The kind of silent escalation that never made noise until it was too late to stop. Back in the lobby, the security guard shifted again, less certain now, his earlier confidence thinning. He glanced at the manager, waiting for direction that no longer felt solid. The manager noticed and straightened, forcing certainty back into his stance. "Escort her out," he said, firm, final. The guard hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Enough for everyone to see. Danielle did not move. Not when the instruction was given. Not when the silence followed. She simply stood there, grounded, unshaken, as if the floor itself had decided to hold her in place. And in that moment, the balance in the room tilted even further. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to change everything that would happen next. The hesitation did not go unnoticed. It never does. The guard took a step forward, but it was slower this time, measured, like he was no longer sure where the line was or who had drawn it. Danielle's eyes met his briefly, not challenging, not afraid, just present. A quiet kind of certainty that made him pause again, just half a second too long. The manager saw it, and his jaw tightened. Control was slipping, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in small fractures, one decision at a time. "Do your job," he said sharply. The words landed harder this time, not because they were louder, but because they carried pressure. The guard nodded, but the confidence was gone. Around them, the room leaned in further. A man near the bar set his glass down completely now, no longer pretending to mind his business. The woman near the entrance had her phone raised just a little higher, her screen angled toward the scene. Even the piano in the corner had stopped, the silence stretching wider, heavier. Danielle remained exactly where she was. No resistance, no movement, just presence. The kind that forces everyone else to reveal themselves. The guard stopped an arm's length away. "Ma'am," he said, quieter now. "I need you to come with me." Danielle tilted her head slightly. "You need me to," she repeated softly. Not a refusal, not agreement, just reflection. The words turned back on him, and for a moment, he had nothing to add. Behind him, the manager stepped forward, closing the distance himself now, as if proximity could restore authority. "This is your final warning," he said. "If you do not comply, we will escalate." Danielle's gaze shifted to him again. Calm, focused. "You already did," she replied. The statement hung there, simple and exact. The manager frowned, irritation flashing through the cracks of his control. "You are creating a scene," he said. Danielle glanced around the lobby, slow, deliberate. "No," she said. "I'm standing still. Everyone else is reacting." The words landed. You could feel it. The subtle shift as a few heads turned, as the weight of the moment became shared, not isolated. The manager's grip on the situation tightened, but his footing was less stable now. He looked at the guard again, then at Emily, then back at Danielle, recalculating in real time. "Enough," he said. "Deactivate her access completely." Emily froze. "Sir, it is already." "Do it again," he cut in, sharper this time. "Make sure there is no trace." The words were quiet, but they carried farther than he intended. A man near the concierge desk let out a low breath. "Did he just say erase it?" someone murmured. Danielle heard it. She did not turn. She did not need to. Instead, she checked her watch again. 10:55 a.m., 11 minutes gone. 5 left. Her expression did not change, but something behind her eyes settled into place, like the final piece of a structure locking in. 5 minutes, she said softly. The manager scoffed, but it came out thinner than before. "You keep counting," he replied. "I do not see anything changing." Danielle looked at him, steady, unblinking. "That is because it is not happening out here," she said. And somewhere, far from the polished floor and controlled voices of the lobby, systems were opening, names were being pulled, and a chain of decisions had already begun to move toward him, faster than he could imagine. By 10:57 a.m., the room had changed sides, even if no one said it out loud. You could feel it in the way people stood still longer than necessary, in the way eyes no longer avoided the scene but stayed locked onto it, waiting. Danielle had not moved. Not when the guard stepped forward. Not when the manager raised his voice. Not even when her access had been erased twice. She stood there like time belonged to her, not the other way around. The manager, on the other hand, checked his watch for the first time. It was quick, almost subconscious, but it gave him away. He felt it now. The countdown. Even if he did not believe it, he felt it. "This ends now," he said, sharper than before, stepping closer, closing the last bit of distance like proximity could overpower certainty. You have overstayed whatever point you were trying to make. Danielle's eyes met his, steady, unshaken. You still think this is about making a point, she said. It was not a question. The manager let out a tight breath. Then explain it, he snapped. Because from where I am standing, you walked into a restricted area without authorization and refused to leave. Danielle nodded once slow. From where you were standing, she repeated. Then she shifted her gaze, not away, but past him, toward the front desk, toward Emily, toward the guests, toward the entire room that had now become part of the moment. That is exactly the problem. The words settled differently this time. Broader. Heavier. The guard glanced back at the manager again, uncertain. Emily had stopped typing entirely. Her screen had gone idle, but her attention had not. Somewhere near the entrance, someone whispered, "Something is about to happen." It was quiet, but it spread. The manager heard it. You could see it in the way his posture stiffened, in the way his grip tightened around his tablet. There is nothing happening, he said quickly, almost too quickly. Danielle checked her watch again. 10:58 a.m., 14 minutes gone. 2 left. The smallest window. The sharpest edge. She lowered her wrist slowly, deliberately, like she wanted him to see it. You are right, she said. Nothing is happening to you yet. The word yet did not raise in volume, but it landed harder than anything else. The manager's expression flickered, just for a second, as if his mind had finally started to catch up with something his instincts had been warning him about all along. He looked toward the elevator, then toward the desk, then back at Danielle, recalculating faster now. This is not how this works, he said, but there was less certainty in it. Danielle tilted her head slightly. That depends on who built the system, she replied. A pause followed. Not empty. Charged. The kind of silence that stretches right before something breaks. Then it happened. Not in the lobby. Not with a shout. Not with a dramatic entrance. It started with a sound, so small most people would have missed it. A soft electronic tone. A single chime from the manager's tablet. He glanced down, irritated at first, expecting nothing. Then his face changed. Just a fraction. His thumb tapped the screen. Once. Twice. The color drained slowly, not all at once, but enough for the room to notice. Danielle did not look at the screen. She looked at him. Directly. That is minute 15, she said quietly. And for the first time since this began, he did not interrupt her. The tablet did not make another sound, but it did not need to. The silence that followed was louder than anything that had come before it. The manager stared at the screen, his thumb frozen mid-motion as if touching it again might change what he was seeing. It did not. His posture shifted, not dramatically, but enough. Enough for the guard to notice. Enough for Emily to lean forward slightly, her eyes narrowing with curiosity that had now turned into something else. Concern. The manager cleared his throat, but the sound came out thinner than he expected. System update, he said quickly, locking the screen and lowering the device to his side. The explanation was too fast, too practiced, and it landed poorly. Danielle did not respond. She did not need to. She simply watched him, her gaze steady, patient, like she had already seen this part play out before. The guard took a half step back without realizing it. A subtle retreat. A shift in alignment. The room felt it. The manager forced a breath through his nose, trying to reset the moment, trying to pull authority back into his voice. We are not continuing this discussion, he said, but the edges of his control were fraying now. Danielle tilted her head slightly. You are right, she said softly. This part is almost over. He frowned. What part? Danielle did not answer immediately. Instead, she glanced past him again, toward the elevator doors, toward the hallway beyond, toward something he could not see yet. Then she looked back at him. The part where you still think you are in charge, she said. The words landed clean. No emotion. No raised tone. Just truth placed directly in front of him. His jaw tightened. That is enough, he snapped, louder now, turning slightly toward the guard again. Escort her out. Now. But the command did not carry the same weight. The guard hesitated again, longer this time. His eyes flicked between the manager and Danielle, then briefly toward the tablet still in the manager's hand. Something had changed. He could feel it, even if he did not understand it. Sir, the guard said carefully, maybe we should verify. There is nothing to verify. The manager cut in, sharper than before, but the sharpness was no longer strength. It was pressure, the kind that cracks under its own force. Behind them, a soft murmur spread again. Not loud, not chaotic, just present. A shared awareness building in real time. Danielle checked her watch one last time. 10:59 a.m. 15 minutes complete. 1 minute left. She lowered her wrist slowly, then took a single step forward. Not toward the exit, not toward the guard, toward the manager. Just enough to shift the space between them. Just enough to make the moment unavoidable. You said this ends now, she reminded him quietly. You were right. The manager opened his mouth to respond, but before any words could form, another sound cut through the room. Not from the tablet this time. From behind them. A sharper tone. A system alert. Then another. And another. 3 quick signals in succession, echoing softly through the lobby like something unlocking in sequence. Every head turned. Even the manager. Danielle did not. She kept her eyes on him, steady, unwavering. That, she said, her voice calm and final, is minute 16. The sound did not stop at 3. It continued, a sequence of controlled alerts echoing softly from behind the front desk, from terminals, from devices that had been silent all morning. Not loud, not chaotic, but undeniable. System level. Irreversible. The manager turned fully this time, his composure cracking in real time as he looked toward the source. Emily's screen lit up first, then another terminal beside her. Then the overhead panel flickered once, subtle but enough. What is that? Someone whispered near the entrance. No one answered, because no one needed to. Danielle stood still, her presence now centered in the middle of something much larger than the lobby itself. The manager stepped toward the desk quickly, reaching for the nearest screen. What is going on? He demanded, but his voice no longer carried authority. It carried urgency. Emily did not respond immediately. Her eyes were locked on the screen, scanning, processing. Sir, she said slowly, there is a system override. He leaned in. Override by who? His tone sharpened, but the question hung heavier than before. Emily swallowed. It is. Coming from corporate-level access. The words landed like a shift in gravity. The guard straightened slightly, his attention no longer on Danielle, but on the unfolding situation behind the desk. The manager's fingers moved quickly across the keyboard now, pulling up panels, opening logs, trying to regain control through familiarity. But the system did not respond the way it had minutes ago. It moved differently. Locked pathways. Restricted commands. A structure he did not recognize. This is not possible, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Danielle took one slow step forward again, closing the distance just enough for her voice to reach him without rising. It is already done, she said. He froze. Not fully. Just enough. Enough for the room to feel it. He turned back toward her, his expression no longer dismissive, no longer confident. Searching now. Who are you? He asked. The question came out quieter than anything he had said before. Danielle held his gaze, steady, unblinking. I asked you to check, she replied. A pause followed. Not empty. Not uncertain. Final. Behind them, another alert sounded, followed by a visual change on the main system screen. Emily stepped back slightly, her hand covering her mouth for a brief second before she lowered it again. Sir, she said, voice steadier now but edged with disbelief. Your access level has been changed. The manager turned sharply. What? Emily pointed at the screen. Your credentials, they are no longer active. The words did not land all at once. They settled, piece by piece. The manager looked back at his tablet, unlocking it quickly, tapping through menus that no longer responded the way they had moments ago. His access. Gone. Not limited. Not restricted. Gone. The guard took another step back, this time consciously. The distance between him and Danielle widened without a word being spoken. The room shifted again. Fully now. Not leaning. Not waiting. Shifted. Danielle did not move. She did not need to. The space had already moved around her. The manager looked up slowly, his voice lower now, stripped of the certainty it once carried. You did this. Danielle's expression did not change. No, she said calmly. I authorized it. The distinction was small, but it changed everything. The word authorized did not echo, but it settled into every corner of the lobby like it had always belonged there. The manager stared at Danielle, his expression caught between disbelief and something else he was not ready to name. Authorized by who? he asked, but the question had already lost its edge. Danielle did not answer immediately. She let the silence stretch just long enough for the room to feel the shift completely. Then she turned slightly, her gaze moving past him, toward the elevator doors that had remained sealed this entire time. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then a soft click broke through the stillness. The penthouse elevator panel lit up. Not dim, not partial, fully active. The indicator changed from restricted to open access in a clean, silent transition. A few people in the lobby inhaled at the same time. Not loudly, just enough. The manager turned toward the elevator slowly, like he was watching something he did not understand unfold in real time. That access is locked, he said instinctively, but the words came too late. The doors slid open with a quiet precision, revealing the private elevator interior that had been off limits just minutes ago. Danielle did not look surprised. She did not look relieved. She simply looked at the open doors, then back at him. It was, she said. Behind the desk, Emily stepped forward slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. Sir, the system is recognizing her as top-level access. The manager's grip on his tablet tightened, but it no longer meant anything. He tapped the screen again, faster this time, searching for something that would give him control back, but every path led to the same result. Locked. Redirected. Overridden. He looked up again, this time fully. No dismissal left. No assumption left. Just the question he had been avoiding since the beginning. Who are you? Danielle stepped forward once more, closing the final distance between them, not invading, not aggressive, just undeniable. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. The name you deleted, she said. The words landed harder than anything else that had been said. Emily's eyes widened slightly. The guard looked between them, understanding arriving in pieces. The manager blinked, slow, like his mind was catching up with something it had resisted too long. Danielle held his gaze. Danielle Brooks, she continued, steady and clear. Executive owner. The title did not echo loudly, but it changed the air instantly. Not because of volume, but because of truth. The room reacted before he could. A quiet ripple. A shift in posture. A realization spreading from one person to another. The man near the bar straightened. The woman with the phone lowered it slightly, then raised it again, this time more deliberately. Emily stepped back, her expression no longer uncertain. The guard took another step away from Danielle, this time fully repositioning himself out of her path. The manager did not move. Not right away. His eyes flicked to the elevator, then back to her, then down at the tablet that no longer recognized him. The silence stretched again, but it was different now. Not tension, not uncertainty. Finality. Danielle turned toward the open elevator, taking one step toward it, then pausing just long enough to look back at him one last time. You denied access, she said calmly, to the person who built it. And this time, he had no response at all. The silence did not break. It deepened. The kind that settles after truth has already done its work. Danielle stood at the threshold of the open elevator, not stepping in yet, not rushing the moment, because she did not need to. Everything that mattered had already shifted. Behind her, the manager remained frozen, his authority stripped not by force, but by fact. He looked at her differently now. Not as a disruption, not as a problem to remove, but as something he should have recognized from the beginning. Executive owner, he repeated under his breath, like the words did not fully belong to him yet. Danielle turned slightly, just enough to face the room again. Not for validation, not for approval, but because this was no longer just about him. The lobby had become witness. Emily stepped out from behind the desk, her posture straighter now, her voice clearer. Ma'am, I am sorry, she said. The apology was not loud, but it carried sincerity. Danielle met her eyes and gave a small nod. You saw the truth, she replied. That matters. The distinction was intentional. The room heard it. The manager did too. His grip on the tablet loosened slightly, his shoulders no longer squared, no longer anchored in the same certainty. This was a misunderstanding, he said finally, trying to gather something back from what was already gone. Danielle looked at him fully now. Calm. Direct. No, she said. It was a decision. The correction landed clean. No anger. No volume. Just clarity. He swallowed, his gaze dropping briefly before lifting again, searching for something to hold on to. If I had known, he started. Danielle cut him off, not with force, but with precision. That is the point, she said. The word stopped him. Completely this time. Around them, the energy in the room had changed from tension to awareness. The man near the bar gave a slight nod, almost to himself. The woman with the phone lowered it slowly, not because the moment was over, but because it had already been captured in memory. The guard stood back now, no longer part of the equation, his role reduced to observation like everyone else. Danielle took another step toward the elevator, then paused again, her voice carrying just enough for the room to hear. You did not question the system, she said. You replaced it with your assumption. The manager's jaw tightened, but he did not interrupt. He could not. You erased a name instead of verifying it, she continued. You denied access without asking why it existed. Each sentence landed like a quiet verdict. Not dramatic. Not exaggerated. Just exact. Emily looked down for a moment, then back up, absorbing every word. The manager exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment finally settling where it belonged. What happens now? He asked, his voice no longer carrying authority, only consequence. Danielle looked at him for a brief second, then shifted her gaze to the elevator, the open doors waiting, silent and ready. Now, she said, stepping forward into the elevator at last. The system finishes what you started. The doors remained open for a moment longer, as if giving him one last chance to understand exactly what that meant. Then, slowly, they began to close. The elevator doors closed with a quiet precision that felt louder than any command that had been given that morning. Inside, Danielle stood alone, the soft hum of the ascent beginning beneath her feet as the private lift carried her upward. She did not press a button. She did not need to. The system already knew where she was going. Floor by floor, the building responded to her presence, not her request. Back in the lobby, the silence lingered for a fraction of a second longer after the doors sealed shut, then it shifted again, not into noise, but into consequence. The manager remained where he stood, eyes fixed on the now closed elevator as if it might reopen and undo everything that had just happened. It did not. Instead, another alert sounded. This one sharper, direct. His tablet vibrated in his hand, the screen lighting up without his input. He looked down slowly, almost reluctantly, as if delaying the moment might soften what was coming. It did not. A notification filled the screen. Corporate directive. Immediate. His access credentials had not only been removed, they had been terminated. Effective immediately. His role. Suspended pending review. The wording was clean. Final. There was no appeal button. No override. No instruction to contact anyone. Just outcome. His fingers hovered over the screen, but there was nothing left to press. Behind the desk, Emily's terminal updated again. Her screen refreshed, new permissions cascading into place. She blinked once, then leaned closer, reading carefully. Sir, she began, then stopped herself. The word no longer fit. She corrected, almost instinctively. There is a management reassignment, she said, her voice steady but edged with disbelief. Temporary authority has been redirected. The guard shifted again, this time stepping fully aside, his posture no longer defensive, no longer uncertain. Just neutral. A witness. The man near the bar let out a low breath, shaking his head slightly, not in confusion, but in recognition of something he had just watched unfold in real time. The woman near the entrance lowered her phone completely now, the moment no longer something to capture, but something to process. The manager stood still, the weight of the notification settling into him piece by piece. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. This cannot be happening, he said, but the words carried no resistance. They sounded like a realization, not a denial. Emily looked at the screen again, then back at him. It already has, she replied softly. Another alert followed, this time from the central system. A list. Names. Departments. Access levels. Each one updating in sequence. The structure of the hotel was shifting in real time, not collapsing, but correcting. Back upstairs, the elevator slowed, then came to a smooth stop. The doors opened silently into the penthouse level, revealing a private corridor lined with glass and light, untouched, undisturbed. Danielle stepped out without hesitation, her pace measured, her expression unchanged. She moved through the space like she had done it 100 times before, because she had. Behind her, the elevator doors closed again, sealing the transition between what had been and what now was. Down in the lobby, the The manager finally lowered his tablet, his shoulders no longer squared, no longer carrying the posture of authority. Just a man standing in the aftermath of his own decisions. And for the first time that morning, no one was looking to him for direction. Up on the penthouse level, the silence felt different. Not tense, not uncertain, controlled. The kind of quiet that comes with ownership, with design, with intention. Danielle walked down the corridor without hesitation, her steps measured against the soft texture of the carpet, her reflection moving alongside her in the floor-to-ceiling glass panels. Every detail in this space had once existed only as a concept, a blueprint, a decision made in rooms far removed from this one. And now she was walking through it, not as a guest, not as a visitor, but as the one who had made it real. She reached the main suite doors and paused for a brief moment, not out of doubt, but out of recognition. Then the door unlocked automatically with a soft tone, responding to her presence alone. No keycard, no confirmation, just access. She stepped inside. Down below, the lobby continued to adjust. Not loudly, not chaotically, but with a quiet efficiency that made everything feel inevitable. Emily stood behind the desk, her posture no longer hesitant, her hands moving with clarity now as new instructions populated her screen. She read them carefully, then looked up, her voice steady. All department leads are being called into immediate review, she said, not addressing anyone in particular, but the words carried across the space. The guard glanced toward her, then toward the manager, then back again, recalibrating his place in a system that had just shifted without asking him. The manager had not moved much, but the stillness around him had changed. It was no longer the stillness of control. It was the stillness of isolation. His tablet hung loosely at his side now, no longer a tool, just an object. Another notification appeared on Emily's screen. She read it once, then again, making sure she understood. Interim oversight is being transferred to executive-level review, she said quietly. The words were precise, deliberate. There was no confusion in them. A man near the bar nodded slowly, almost to himself. That was fast, he murmured. Not impressed, not surprised, just aware. Back upstairs, Danielle moved through the penthouse with the same calm presence she had carried into the lobby. She passed the living area, the city stretching wide beyond the glass, sunlight reflecting across every surface. She stopped near the center of the room and set her phone down on the table without looking at it. She did not need updates. She already knew how this would unfold. For a moment, she stood still, her gaze resting on the skyline, her expression unchanged, but her presence grounded in something deeper than the events below. This was not about proving anything. It never had been. It was about alignment, correction, balance. Down in the lobby, the manager finally looked up again, but this time there was no one looking back to him for direction. No one waiting for his next command. The room had moved on. Not emotionally. Structurally. Emily stepped slightly forward from behind the desk, her voice carrying just enough to reach him. You will need to wait for further instruction, she said. It was not a suggestion. It was not harsh. It was simply the truth of his position now. He blinked once, absorbing it, his shoulders lowering just slightly as the last piece of his authority settled into place. Not removed loudly. Not taken by force. Just reassigned. And for the first time since this began, he understood that the moment had never been his to control. Time did not slow down after that moment. It sharpened. Every second carried clarity now, not confusion. In the lobby, the structure had already shifted into its new shape, and everyone inside it could feel where they stood. Emily's screen continued to update, each line of instruction reinforcing what had already become obvious. The system was not reacting. It was executing. All access logs from this morning are being pulled, she said, her voice steady, no longer hesitant. Full review protocol has been initiated. The words were procedural, but the meaning behind them was not lost on anyone. The manager stood still, absorbing each update as if it were being placed directly in front of him, one piece at a time. There was no argument left to make. No authority left to lean on. Only consequence, unfolding exactly as designed. A second staff member stepped out from the back office, glancing between Emily and the manager, then at the screen. Is that corporate? He asked quietly. Emily nodded once. Executive level, she replied. The distinction mattered. The guard shifted again, but this time it was not uncertainty. It was alignment. He moved closer to the desk, not as enforcement, but as support, repositioning himself within the structure that had just redefined itself. The man near the bar finished his drink, setting the glass down with a quiet finality. "This is how it should work," he said under his breath. Not loud enough to interrupt, but clear enough to be heard. Back upstairs, Danielle remained still for a moment longer, her gaze resting on the city below. Then she reached for her phone. Not urgently, not reactively, just at the exact moment it made sense. She tapped the screen once. "Status," she said calmly. The response came through immediately, precise and structured. Full system compliance achieved. Management access revoked. Internal review in progress. Awaiting final directive. Danielle listened without interrupting, her expression unchanged. Then she nodded once, even though the person on the other end could not see it. "Proceed," she said. "One word. Enough." Down in the lobby, Emily's screen refreshed again. This time, the message was direct. Final authorization required for personnel resolution. She read it carefully, then looked up, her eyes moving toward the manager. Not with hostility, not with satisfaction, just with understanding of what came next. The manager noticed. He did not look away this time. He held her gaze, not as a superior, not as a leader, but as someone waiting for a decision that was no longer his to make. The room was quiet again, but it was no longer tense. It was resolved. Emily took a breath, then straightened slightly, her voice clear, steady, and certain. "Pending executive confirmation," she said. The words carried across the space like a closing statement. Everyone understood what they meant. Back in the penthouse, Danielle stepped away from the window and moved toward the center of the room, her presence grounded, her decision already formed long before this moment. She lifted her phone again, her voice calm, controlled, and final. "Authorized termination of hotel management," she said. There was no hesitation, no pause, just action aligned with truth. And far below, in the lobby where it had all begun, the system prepared to complete what had already been set in motion. The confirmation did not come with noise. It came with precision. Down in the lobby, the system responded instantly, not with chaos, not with confusion, but with alignment. Emily's screen refreshed one final time, and the message was clear, unmistakable, irreversible. Termination authorized. Effective immediately. She read it once, then lifted her eyes, her voice steady as she spoke the words that would define the moment. "Management access has been permanently revoked," she said. The room did not react loudly. It did not need to. The weight of it settled into every person standing there. The manager stood motionless, the final piece of the structure he once controlled now removed completely. His tablet, still in his hand, dimmed quietly, its screen returning to a neutral state that no longer recognized him. Not as a user, not as authority, just as someone who had been part of a system that had moved on. The guard straightened slightly, no longer uncertain, no longer waiting for instruction from the wrong place. Emily stepped fully into her new role without hesitation, her posture aligned with the authority now placed in her hands. "All operational responsibilities are being reassigned," she continued, her voice calm, professional, grounded. Each word carried forward, not as a reaction, but as continuation. The man near the bar gave a small nod, almost approving, while others in the lobby shifted back in emotion, not ignoring what had happened, but accepting that it had already been resolved. There was no spectacle, no raised voices, just consequence delivered exactly where it was due. The manager finally lowered his head slightly, not in defeat, but in realization. The moment he had tried to control had never belonged to him. Not from the beginning, not even for a second. Upstairs, Danielle stood in the center of the penthouse, her phone now silent in her hand. She did not check it again. She did not need confirmation. The system had already done what it was built to do. She walked slowly toward the window, the city stretching out before her, unchanged by what had just occurred, but somehow different in its reflection. For a brief moment, she stood there, still, grounded, her presence no longer challenged, no longer questioned. Then she spoke, not to anyone in the room, but to the moment itself, her voice low, steady, final. "You did not lose your job because you were wrong," she said quietly. "You lost it because you never questioned why you thought I was." The words carried no anger, no bitterness, just clarity. the kind that does not need to repeat itself. Down below, the lobby returned to its rhythm, but it was not the same rhythm it had before. It was corrected, balanced, aligned, and the space that had once tried to deny her now moved seamlessly around the truth of who she had always been.